Welcome to Ahead of the Game, a podcast brought to you by the Digital Marketing Institute. I'm your host, Will Francis, and today I'm talking to Ben Kaluza, one of the leading creators on the topic of succeeding as a creator online. He's got a background in marketing and advertising. He worked at Twitch for a few years until going full-time as a creator in 2023. So today, what I want to learn from him is what it takes to grow an audience online today, but also how marketers can better work with creators and lots more to talk about aside from that. Welcome to the podcast, Ben. It's great to have you.
It's great to be here. That was a good intro. Nailed it.
Good, thanks. So do you know what? My first question for you is a mega basic one.
Go on.
I'm curious why. Like, what is it in you that makes you want to put stuff online?
Do you know what? It kind of stemmed from starting in corporate after I finished university. And I honestly just within the first week, I just was like, this is not for me. I come from an operations background, so advertising operations. There's very little creativity in advertising operations. I mean, you could stretch a bit and say there's creativity in designing and creating efficient operations, but no, not really. And my day job ended up me being like doing fairly mundane, repetitive tasks as operations is, and like it didn't. I felt there was no exploration. There's no opportunity to explore like creativity in some sense. And I had been, I won't say I'm the most creative person at school, but I like, being creative. I think everybody does to some degree. And then I just started creating content because I just felt like it was from a bit of escapism, I think, just to own something as well. When you start corporate job, for me, I felt like now I'm working 40 hours a week for somebody else. I just then had this idea and ambition of, working for myself. I wanted to start a business, but I was like, okay, I was sort of doing more, looking at SEO at the time, website building, sort of different digital marketing channels alongside my sort of advertising job. And then I think content creation was just one of those things, social media, that just fell into one of the things that I was going to try, and that's kind of what got me started.
Take me back there. That's interesting. So you were in ad ops, which, like you say,
Yes,
it's the trafficking of ads. You're the people within somewhere like Twitch, right, where you are responsible for actually getting this stuff live, the logistical side of that, right?
Yes, yeah. So my first job out of university was in display. I was display advertising for a private healthcare website, gated community, where pharma companies could advertise their drugs to UK physicians because it was on a gated website, and I was responsible for putting the display at the top, on the side, and essentially managing the back end of that in Google Ad Manager, and then I transitioned to Twitch after about a year and a half. Cause I got very fortunate in my first job in that I got given a lot of responsibility very quickly. The ad ops was outsourced. I started, and then they insourced it to me after a year, and I got a big responsibility on my lap, which allowed me to get the job at Twitch because the Twitch job required more experience than I had, but because I was basically managing ad ops for this company after, I didn't really know what I was doing I was figuring it out as I went along, but they were happy for me to figure it out as I went along rather than paying the agency an extortionate fee to not really do a great job. And that's just kind of, what stumbled me into Twitch, which was then more video ad focused. So you're right, managing the back end, making not much programmatic, more direct, more like brand, here's the assets, here's the target audience, here's the demo game we want. I'm the one that, filling in the drop downs in, the dates and that, and then schedule go live. Pretty boring.
It is, but I work sort of near the ad ops people at a similar place to Twitch, a website called MySpace, where I worked for years in the noughties. I always thought that there was something interesting, something I found fascinating about the ad ops people and what they did. And I thought, well, yeah, okay, you are just, you're pushing buttons and getting the stuff live, but he must give you real some deep insight there, into what brands will pay money for, what brands get for that money. You see the results of that. Like, what did it make you think about display advertising, just out of interest?
Yeah, people paying a lot of money. Well, on the healthcare website, people paying 50, 60, 70 pound CPM,
Wow.
cost per 1,000 impressions on the display, because you couldn't advertise to doctors anywhere else. Twitch also very premium as well, CPM, because at the time, Twitch, this was sort of COVID, pre-COVID, during COVID, Twitch was booming, and as a place to advertise to the younger audience, Twitch was the place. TikTok wasn't quite established at that time with its advertising products, and TikTok now is, because TikTok targeting is fantastic, and their ad ecosystem is a lot more developed than it was 3, 4, 5 years ago. But Twitch was the only place that you could really sort of go after this sort of young Gen Z and below audience, because they're all on Twitch. They're all on Twitch, and yeah, it just kind of opened my eyes up to that a little bit, and that sort of, I actually thought Twitch are going to be, as I left, I'm like, you guys are going to be in trouble. You don't develop out your ad products, you don't become more competitive. TikTok are going to take most of the market when it comes to brands wanting to advertise to people, and Meta to some degree, because it's a lot cheaper and the targeting's better.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Do you think it was being at Twitch and seeing a lot of streamers and people building businesses on essentially doing the things they loved and creating content about it? I mean, did that influence you a bit?
Yeah, because I started streaming as I was at Twitch. I'd started creating content before I joined Twitch within fitness and personal development, productivity, Ali Abdul kind of style, sharing my note-taking systems, nothing too exciting. And then I was already gaming. I started streaming on Twitch about 4 or 5 months into my job. They're very much like, yeah, do it. Like, they obviously they want their employees to stream. They want themselves to immerse themselves in what the business is. And it sounds really bad, but I could access any streamer's dashboard. Like, I could see their YouTube studio data, let's just say. I could see how much they made and stuff. And it wasn't until then when I started to realize how much streamers made, because it was never really discussed, and it's very different than other platforms. And it wasn't so much the big guys and girls that I was kind of more curious about. I mean, I was curious about them, and then I'm more curious about the smaller people. How much are the smaller people making? And you would see people who would average 50 to 100 CCV, so 50 to 100 people watching like at a time on average over the duration of the stream. And 50 to 100 doesn't sound like a lot, because everybody's used to follower count or views on Reels or TikToks in the hundreds of thousands. 50 to 100, that's not a lot. But these people are earning 5 to 10 grand a month. Not everybody, but across different game categories. Popular ones: Call of Duty, FIFA, Minecraft, World of Warcraft, Roblox. And I was like, wow, like this, how difficult could it be, my naivety, but it essentially pushed me to go, I game, I work at Twitch, like, what's there to lose?
Yeah, wow, that is an eye opener, isn't it? Is that those numbers are not what you'd expect. So you saw that, right? What was the first kind of content you put up, and also what was the first thing that kind of took off and got a big number?
Well, I quickly established, figuring out, I did it for 4 weeks, and then I was like, okay, let me figure out how do I grow. That's what I wanted to know. How do I grow? And it quickly establishes that, like, Twitch as a platform doesn't have any like discoverability. Like, there's no video feed like TikTok, Reels, YouTube homepage. You kind of it's very much favored towards people at the top. They're the ones that get seen first. They're the ones that get clicked on. And I realized you need a funnel, and then TikTok is the funnel here. TikTok at the time, 3-4 years ago, was an amazing funnel, and they had just recently launched TikTok Live. This is very early stages of TikTok Live. I think this was 4 or 5 years ago. And all of the Twitch streamers who were already set up as live streamers, lots of my gaming friends, you just multi-stream to TikTok and Twitch, and then you use the TikTok Live to funnel people into Twitch, as well as the views. And so you just have, as well as the videos, you just have a video and people will be able to identify, okay, this is a Twitch streamer. They've probably got a Twitch channel. We'll go over. Still not easy to funnel people over, but that's the method.
And is that because there's more money to be made on Twitch? You want people over there.
Twitch is at the bottom of the funnel because you can't send any Twitch. You make a lot of money there through people gifting and subbing. Like people pay £5 a month to subscribe to you. It's a little bit like Patreon.
Yeah.
They get some emotes and they don't really get a lot. It's their way of saying thank you for providing entertainment value or education value. And then people with, I guess, bigger wallets gift out money. You can make money quickly there if you can then get an audience quickly, because it's not ad revenue, it's not brand deals. So this is why you see people 50 to 100 CCV earning 5 to 10 grand, is because actually those 50 that's an average of 50, which actually over the stream might be 300-400 people, and if all of them are subscribers, or you've got 3 to 5 people who would quite happily just donate $100 in one go, which is like, people think that's ridiculous. That's more than just normal. Wow. The donation and gifting culture on Twitch is nothing like any other platform. This is what you see TikTok have adopted. TikTok realized this, and this is exactly what they have done with Live, where they have roses. The difference with TikTok is their gifts are a lot cheaper. On Twitch, you wouldn't donate a gift that was worth 1p or 2p, or I believe the roses are kind of around that price.
They are, yeah.
Yeah, where it would be more of like £1 or $1, and like you'd have bits as well, but generally there's a minimum threshold for donating, and
interesting.
It's just the culture. You just wouldn't donate a really low amount. You would donate what you can, but it would always be probably 1 to 5.
I mean, I'm still surprised when I see someone on TikTok Live and someone donates something worth about 3 pennies, and the creator goes, "Thanks, John," and you're like, "Thanks, what? 3p's worth of digital assets?"
But I think TikTok took that from Twitch because they realized that they could take a piece of that pie, of course, and now that's developed into these stupid live battles. They've now got this battling game. I'll explain what it is for people that don't know. 2 people are live streaming. You can invite someone into the live streaming. So then there's now it's a dual live stream. 2 people on the screen. One person has a blue bar. One person has a pink bar. It's in the middle, kind of like a tug of war kind of style, where as streamer A's audience gift, that moves the bar to the right. As streamer B's audience gift, that moves the bar back to the left. So, and basically whoever wins is, after 3 minutes, I think, whoever's got the bigger bar, and they're incentivizing their audience to give, because it's gamifying live streaming to people. And TikTok knows this, and they push those live streams out because they take some of that money. I don't like it because I've never sat well with making my income from people's donations. That's firstly, it's not sustainable, and secondly, I would rather earn money from businesses and brands rather than, consumers donating money. Times are hard right now. The cost of living is high, and it just never sat right with me as a long-term revenue stream.
Just to jump in and explain gifting a bit as well, because some people might be listening and not know what that is. But essentially, gifting is quite simply that there are these sort of token style gifts you can buy, and essentially on the spot buy with in-platform currency. So on TikTok you have coins, so you have to buy coins, and then with those coins you can buy the roses that we've talked about, all the way up to kind of really flashy things like galaxies and all sorts, and they cost different amounts of money. And by gifting that to a creator live, the creator gets some of that revenue, and TikTok gets some of that revenue. So yeah, it's a tricky one, in the whole buy me a coffee kind of thing, and the whole kind of gifting economy. It is I understand why you're not so comfortable with that. I'd be the same. I'd rather be getting paid by brands who want to sponsor and advertising revenue, things like that.
Yeah. And I used to watch a guy called Devon Nash, who used to speak on the streamer economy quite a bit, and the longevity of a streamer. He says the average streamer is successful streamer is 3 to 5 years, because you burn out from streaming.
Wow.
You inevitably run out of steam. This is what happened to me, and your audience just loses trust in you, or just loses the desire to watch you as much anymore because maybe you change games or
Yeah.
change. You evolve, and some of your audience don't evolve with you, and you then still have to be you have to be funneling people in, and it's not like YouTube or TikTok where a video could be evergreen, and you make 100 videos on YouTube, and actually some of them are being pumped out for years and years and years, and that's building your audience. Twitch, you don't stream, you don't build an audience on Twitch. It's as simple as that, and that is the biggest problem that I identified, and I preach this to people all the time. People come onto my TikTok live and they say, I want to start streaming. I said, don't. I say, please don't. I say, if you're desperate to stream and you just want to have fun and you want a game, I say, do it. Learn how to stream, learn how to edit, learn some skills there in itself. Public speaking to some extent of being in the moment. Speaking is a good skill set to have. I think it's helped me massively. But don't think that you're going to make it as a successful streamer and become the next Speed or Kai Cenat and the biggest, or Mr. Beast, because you won't. They're the 1% of the 1% of the 1% of the 1%. And unfortunately, we live in a world where you only see the people succeeding and you don't see the millions failing, who are the true representation of reality.
It's true that. So you pivoted to creating content on TikTok, Instagram, this evergreen content, like you say, even if you have a week off, that content is still gathering many, many views and followers and engagement. So when did that start to take off? And again, what was the kind of inflection point where you realized, oh, this is a thing because a video did really well?
Yeah. I stopped streaming gaming, took 6 months off, sort of a bit of reflecting of I fell more in love as I was stopped growing. I fell more in love with trying to figure out how to grow and analyzing other people and okay, well, why are they growing and why am I not growing? I think my content's all right. I then started a podcast. I was like, you know what? Actually, let me just speak to people and ask. I'd made a bit of a network being at Twitch and also as a streamer, and I had some sizable people, a lot bigger than me, and I think they were more than happy to sit on my podcast and chat to me on the basis that wouldn't mind having somebody at Twitch just there if they ever needed a favor from me. So I leveraged that to some extent, I felt more interested in just being a voice of the ecosystem, having my experience. And even though at Twitch I was in ad operations, I very much made it my mission to meet a lot of people. I did a lot more than the typical employee, exploring other areas of my job, because the culture inside was very transparent. I could speak to anybody most of the time, quite high up. If I just showed interest and I'm really interested in what you're doing, I loved it about it, and I made use of that. And then I started posting my podcast on TikTok, fresh new account. I'd grown my Call of Duty account to 100,000 on TikTok, and I just abandoned that. I just was like, I'm just going to start again. So I started a fresh new account. This was called Stream Strat, essentially short for streaming strategy, and was basically on streaming strategy. So is what it says on the tin. Basically talking to people on my podcast, understanding their strategy, understanding how they grow, why they grow, how they manage the stream, mental health, all sorts of podcasts. And then podcast didn't start working. I thought, well, if I'm talking to people on podcast, maybe I could relay some of the points, but in my own more structured content, where I'm just sort of taking bits that people have said, taking things that I already know, and just being like, okay, you should do this. Again, nobody listening, I guess, and then I just started pivoting out towards I didn't want to, but I had seen people say this within the same space, in that the valuable content never gets any views, and it's only when they do tutorials on setting, how to set up your audio and stuff like that. OBS settings. OBS is the streaming platform that most people use, broadcasting platform. So I started doing OBS tutorials, and of course the videos started doing well. And then I was like, well, I'm not having success giving opinion-based content. So I was like, let me just do some education tutorial-based content. And that's when I started seeing a lot more success. And then I started venturing out into finding OBS plugins, things, how, you can get bubbles on your screen, really niche stuff like that. Bells and whistles that people just wanted to make their stream look pretty.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting that, isn't it? I find in general, in content, in podcasts, in everything, you can give people really high value information about like strategic stuff, the stuff that's quite hard to get your head around and quite hard to action. And people kind of go, yeah, yeah. But the minute you give people like really practical, hands-on tips, like here's a cool plugin or here's a 1, 2, 3 little mini tutorial,
Yeah.
people love that. People love the tactical stuff. And yeah, sometimes it can feel a bit less gratifying to create and deliver because you know it's not quite as high impact ultimately
Yeah.
big picture, but people just lap that up because it feels like, okay, this is something I can do right now, and it might not be the answer to everything, but it's a tiny upgrade that I can action right now with zero barrier. And actually, I remember that's when I first came across your account when it was called Stream Strat. And one thing that struck me about it, the reason that stopped me scrolling, the reason that stops a lot of people scrolling, I think, is your production values are significantly higher. I mean, you can even see now, like, you know, your even your normal like video call setup. You know, it's
Yeah.
really nicely lit. You've got this lovely kind of dark look to everything. It's just your face is like lit 45 degrees, really nice sound. But then the editing and stuff is like really slick. Tell me about, talk me through that, because I'm somewhere in the middle. I spend a little bit of time setting up and editing my stuff, but then I see people who just shoot stuff on their phone. The subtitles haven't even been corrected. They don't even make sense. Like they're
Yeah.
really badly edited and they're getting big views. What do you think about all that?
Yeah. High production versus low production, right? Like,
Yeah.
yeah, I think both work. I think this narrative that people prefer raw content is rubbish. That's not true. People,
Yeah.
we people. It was just an echo chamber here. Is that one person says something, and then there's something that kind of reinforces the point, but it's not actually necessarily the truth. And then everybody else starts saying it, and then everybody else believes it. But I
Yeah.
say, when have people not preferred raw content? Did 5 years ago people? No, I've preferred raw content for years. What's happened, in my opinion, is Mr. Beast came along, and he beastified everything, right? So
Yeah.
for people that don't know what that term means, it means that like Mr. Beast has a certain editing style that's quite high energy, high impact, flashy, 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 keeps people engaged. People start to copy that. And I think that audience of who were 15 to 20, 5, 10 years ago, have now grown up into the 20 to 30s. And now all of a sudden they prefer slower content. And I'm like, that is usually the transition of most of kids to adults. That's you as a kid, you like that flashy, engaging stuff, and then you move towards more slower, thoughtful, raw stuff. And I don't think there has been a shift in people preferring raw content. I just think there's been an audience shift in terms of who's occupying social. There's always two sides, and yes, there might have been a slight shift to preferring more raw due to Mr. Beastification, but I still think there's very much a place for both, depending on what the content is, who the audience is, what the niche is, what the platform is. There's a place for all styles, from really highly edited to flashy, engaging, to completely raw. In my opinion, the completely raw stuff does way better on TikTok than it does on Instagram and YouTube. Shorts, that is. YouTube long form does really well for raw, longer piece. TikTok, I don't feel like it longer raw does do that well, even though everyone at the time was like, TikTok are pushing long form videos. I don't think they are. And that's just a narrative that gets echoed with no actual evidence that TikTok are pushing long form. Because at the end of the day, TikTok want you to stay on the platform as long as possible. And the way that I look at it is, if a very simple understanding that I explain to people is, if when you come onto the platform, you're shown a sequence of videos. Let's just say you're shown 10 videos. TikTok want you to stay on the platform for as long as possible after watching those 10 videos. They don't want you to come after video 2. They don't want you to come off after video 6. If they show you a really long video first video, a really long video second video, a really long video third video, and your total time on platform is 2 minutes, versus showing you shorter video 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and your total time on platform is 3 minutes or 4 minutes. This isn't necessarily how it works, but I look at it like that and think, well, if they're pushing long form to people, but people are not staying on the app for longer,
Yeah.
then I think that shifts the content that gets shown to people. I mean, it's super complex. Nobody understands it.
No, but I think you're true. I'm sure it's the same at Twitch. The product team at any content platform, when they sit down and look at the monthly numbers, one of the main numbers is what is the average time someone spent per session in our app or website, right?
Yeah.
And content that helps with that, however long it is or however well produced it is, gets rewarded. I'm sure. I think the thing that skews it is when we talk about marketing. I think people definitely are more averse to things that look like marketing. So I think it is, for a lot of brands, can be wise advice like stop your content looking like marketing and therefore make it look more raw and user generated.
Yeah.
But you're right. I think in terms of creators, to me, it's like food. It's just, does it taste good? Whether it's served in a high-end restaurant or out of a wrapper from a convenience store, all that really mattered was, is it what I wanted? Does it taste nice in that moment? Right? It doesn't really matter how
Yeah.
it's packaged. Was it good?
I think I agree. It's like, does it feel real? Does it feel authentic? And that can be raw or it can be high production. Like, are they being honest? Are they delivering value? And again, it depends on the niche. If I'm sat there talking about cameras or audio, and I'm sat there filming from my iPhone, are people more or less likely to listen to me? Like, obviously less if I'm shooting from my phone. And so it all depends on the niche that you're in. If you're in sort of more of a consumer products like healthcare, makeup, because this is the sort of content that is definitely the more raw, user generated content that brands like, where it's people in their bedroom showing how they use a product. Whereas if you compare it now to, I guess, what I do, where I'm showcasing web applications or SaaS product software, that is going to brands are going to, I think, I prefer that to be in a more professional manner, but also I think the audience do as well, because it's just on brand. A web application and software, you want someone to present that in a professional way. I don't know how else to explain it. Maybe you could add some thoughts to that, in that, like, why I think it works better with it being high production when matched with B2B SaaS or software or web applications compared to consumer lifestyle products.
My take on it is, I don't know. I think your content is just very well produced, and I always assume that when you show a product, it's not just some half-baked thing where you've whipped your phone out your pocket and just gone, "Oh, this is good. I found this online 5 seconds ago." So there's an assumption that your recommendations are considered because
Yeah.
it took time. You can see I always think that about stuff. I always think when you can see effort, you just take content more seriously. Now, that effort can be editing, but it could also be, like when someone is stood in like a really unusual location, like they bothered to leave their house and go and stand on a cliff edge, or something like that. That signaling of high effort always makes you take the content more seriously and what people recommend and say in the content more seriously. So, okay, thinking about your life now as a creator, I'd love to get into that because I'm also going to flip that and ask about sort of working with creators. Firstly, are you a creator or an influencer? And what do those two words even
I'm a
mean?
creator and influencer. A lot of people. I thought about this the other day actually whilst I was walking down the street, because when I've been to quite a few events, people ask, "What's the difference between a creator and an influencer?" I mean, everybody's an influencer these days. If you're looking at a very broad term, is that, like, can you
Yeah.
convince someone to purchase something? There's a scale, I think, in terms of like creator, influencer, and there's a scale of like, okay, actually more of a creator, less of an influencer, or someone's more of an influencer. Yeah. And I was trying to think, how do I describe someone that's more an influencer than a creator? I think you're an influencer when someone goes to purchase something and they want your opinion. Like, you're the person who is the one that they want to know whether they think it's good or not. You're the person who, like, so when I'm on my live stream, I consider myself an influencer, but because people want to know what I've got, they want to know what I think.
Yeah.
I am the one that is basically converting them to buy something. I'm not basically putting out a message outwardly, just because anybody could do that. Because this is why I was trying to figure out what the difference is. Nobody is stopping from my mum making a TikTok saying, I just got this set of mugs from John Lewis. They're really cheap. You can say, well, she's an influencer. But how many people are going to my mum to know what she would recommend for other
Yeah.
stuff? And I think that to me is trying to signal a key difference here, because technically anybody could start creating content tomorrow and call themselves an influencer. I would consider myself more of an influencer. Obviously, I'm a creator. All influencers are creators. But
Yeah.
definitely more of an influencer because of the amount of product purchases that I influence.
Yeah. You've become an authority. You have, and again, because of the quality of your content, people are asking about your camera setup, your editing software, as well as the things that you recommend which are related to that, in a way that they wouldn't ask other people about. Right. So you're a full-time creator now. What does that entail? Like, how are you working with brands? How do you bankroll being a full-time creator?
So making videos is obviously primary task of every week. Whether I make 2 videos, 3 videos, 4 videos, or depends on ideas in the funnel. The problem is that there's nobody above me to tell me what, like with any sort of freelance role, which I would guess content creation would fall under that category, is there's nobody that, my work comes in from brand deals, which come in sporadically without me being able to predict, and they just fit in alongside my organic content. The more organic content I make, I don't think it necessarily correlates with the amount of brand deals I get. Yes, you might say, well, more organic content might equal more views, more growth, more brand deals. But I'm at a point now where if I posted 4 times a week compared to 2, 4 times a week won't bring me in more brand deals. So I don't necessarily post 4 times a week because I'm trying to focus elsewhere on different revenue streams, more on YouTube long form, and elsewhere. And I look at my look at my brand deals like advertising slots. So like in a month, I tend to usually do 2 to 4. So in a month, I might post like 10 organic videos, maybe somewhere between 8 to 12 to 13, right? And I probably would say, okay, I'm happy for like a quarter of those to be ads,
Because you've got to post organic content between the ads, so
yes.
you can't obviously just post the brand
I mean,
sponsored
some
post.
people, you'll find every creator is very different with how much they are happy for their feed to be ads. Some people you can tell do not care. And often the people that do not care do not disclose because, well, they kind of do care because they don't disclose, which means that you can't tell that they're all ads, but I can tell they're ads.
I know this is so basic to you, but to people out there that don't know, like, what's the breakdown of how these brand deals occur, like in terms of being approached, then executing on it from your point of view and getting paid? What actually goes on?
Brands usually like send me an email.
Do you have an agent?
Yeah, I have an agency. Yeah, I'm managed by a talent agency. Yeah.
So did they mostly come through there or direct to you or a bit of a mix?
We have an inbox that's my email that they have access to.
Got you. Yeah.
I've been with an agent. Been with this agency for 5 months. I was with a previous agency for a year. They just manage all of the communication, the like back and forth contracting. It's a bit of a time sink. Brands emails me. I get around 34 emails a week, and then 90% of those are pretty garbage. Like they're just startups, people just wanting stuff for free, crappy tools, products that are not aligned with my audience. So unfortunately, like there's just a hell of a lot of like crap that my agency have to go through. But then occasionally like a brand comes in that's either well known, that I obviously know straight away, or not well known, but they make a good product that maybe they're new, they might be a startup, just got investment, they're on the rise. And then I will then proceed with telling my agency that I want to work with them, and then we figure out how to price depending on what they've asked for up front, or they might just not ask for something up front and just want to know like the cost of everything that I offer.
And how do you price? Do you when they haven't mentioned anything, do you have a sort of standard price?
Um, my minimum rate is usually 5,000.
Mm,
That usually is for either a TikTok or Instagram. Um, it's taken me a while to get to that rate. It's just based off of a number of different factors. Just me thinking that that's what I feel like I'm worth, and production and authority and longevity of videos, and started
yeah.
charging $500. And as I've grown to just a higher authority, I just feel like that's just a fair rate for me. Some people might agree with that. Some people might disagree with that. I don't really care.
No,
Everybody
it is.
has a different way of pricing themselves. Some brands don't have the money. Some brands do have the money. That's fine. I'm okay with that. I'm
Mm,
happy to say no to £1,000, a £2,000. It took me a very long time to learn how to say no, because
mm,
a lot of smaller creators or creators going through the same journey that I went through will look at £2,000 for a TikTok video and go, "That's easy money. That's really easy money. Like, why would I not say that to you?" Okay, but then you've got another 20 people also asking for a video for £2,000. Where do you draw the line?
yeah.
Because then you spend all of your time working on brand deals. You maybe have more on the feed, which is then your ad content becomes more than your organic. You are burning yourself out because you're having to deal with brand deals. Aren't fun to make because you've got
No.
to deal with a client now who has a say in what that content looks like. And it's very different than creating organic videos. And ultimately, you come to a point where it's not sustainable to say yes to everything, even though you think that it's easy money. Don't get me wrong, it's very difficult sometimes me saying no to £2,000 for me to just make a TikTok video, which inevitably takes me one evening sometimes.
Yeah.
But that's just, I prefer to now spend the time doing long-term things that bring long-term value, spending my time on YouTube, or doing other things. That's the problem that a lot of creators, uh, um, the problems that they face is obviously, one, learning how to say no, but not learning how to not constantly chase short-term money, because
Yeah.
every brand deal that I make doesn't bring me long-term value. Realistically, it brings me short-term cash. So if I get to a point where I'm earning £5,000 to £10,000 a month, and that's more than enough for me to live the life that I live, give me disposable income,
Mm,
I can choose to earn another £5,000 to £10,000 a month by doing more brand deals, filling the rest of my time. Or I can choose to actually say, no, I don't need any extra money now. I'm going to spend that time focusing on things that are going to bring long-term value. And if all goes to plan, will 10x, 50x the amount of that extra 5, 10 grand over, a couple of years. I'm building something that's going to make hundreds of thousands, not
yeah.
just 5 to 10. And I think having that mindset is something that I shifted to a couple of years ago. But I think some people take a little bit longer than others, making that realization that not everybody, you shouldn't just live in the now all the time.
Well, yeah, it's true, isn't it? Money is so hard to turn down, and it's
Yeah.
like anybody that goes freelance has that problem on some level. Where, like, can I take a day off? That day off is essentially costing me money right now on the spot. If you're like a freelance designer in the advertising industry, like every day off is costing you money, and that can feel hard. But um, that's really interesting. So you talk about, and I agree, that brand deals, they're not fun to service. You've got to both be creative, you've got to deliver something your audience wants, and that they won't call you out on just being a crappy sellout for,
Yeah.
but you've got to please the clients. You've got all that to deal with. So looking at it from the client's point of view, how could the client be the perfect client?
Um, Knowing what they want,
Hmm.
being realistic with knowing what they want. Do they want brand awareness? Do they want conversion? You can't have both. But brands
Interesting.
sometimes think that they just list everything, and they're like, no, if it's a different part of the funnel, there's different tactics and different strategy. Just like with any other marketing channel, you don't apply the same tactics. So there's crossover, but generally, this should be a different approach. So it's figuring out what exactly they want, and then a lot of brands don't know what they want. Influencer marketing is not that new. We're 5, 6,
Uh,
7 years into it. But we're still seeing a lot of brands that have never done it before because it now has become, I would say, a staple in the marketing mix. As like it's not, it's kind of under social media, but it's kind of not social media. It's because social media, you would say, is the brand social media, which is organic influencer marketing, is through social, but actually requires usually somebody that knows what they're doing because there's lots of nuances.
Yeah.
And like it's understanding that there's always risk, just like with any marketing channel, when it comes to reach, distribution, conversion, video potentially is not going to perform well if you've not chosen the right people who are going to make the right content. What brands don't spend enough time doing, and they also maybe use agencies that are also, a lot of agencies not in my good books either because they don't do a good job, is that they broadly categorize creators at the top level of the niche. So let's go tech. Okay, what is tech? You've got hardware, you've got software, you've got then under hardware, you've got headphones, microphones, keyboards, cameras, you've got software, website builders, video. And what brands and agencies do is they broadly categorize influencers and go, oh, we've got a website builder. You'd be great for the amount of website builders that I get asked to make videos on. I say, I've never made a video on a website builder ever. My audience are generally people that are interested in making videos. Yes, a website might appeal to.
Nah, but you're a techie guy.
Yeah, I'm a techie guy. And you know what? I'll make a video and it will perform awful. And the brand won't get what they want because they've not spent the time. I guess it's difficult. You have to spend time understanding who are the right influencers to promote your product or service. And if you shortcut that, don't expect good results. Because it does take time sometimes to find these people. It's not difficult to find them, but again, it takes time and people don't want to put the time in. And I think not enough brands put paid spend behind influencer content, which is a shame because I speak to a number of brands and I'm like, do you want to put paid spend? And they said, no, we haven't allocated any budget for paid spend here. And I was like, okay, so you pay me 5,000 and my video does awful, then what? You've just lost all that money. Like realistically, like I've just made you a really good video ad. It might not perform well on my page because of a number of different variable and factors. TikTok's TikTok. One day the video might do well, one day it might do nothing, and that's just the reality of short form platforms. I think that's common knowledge, but I don't think it is.
No, so you always encourage them to use it as an ad, basically, to
yes, because
boost
they've
that as an
paid
ad.
me to make the video. It's a really nice asset, and it will convert over if it's put out as an ad because that's how it's been made. But as we discussed, audiences don't like to be sold to, especially if it's. You can sniff an ad from a mile away when it's like on a creator's feed because it's even mine. I try and make mine very similar to my organic, and I can get away with it because of the way my organic content is set up. Most creators can't. When influencers all of a sudden promoting Head and Shoulders, it's fairly obvious, and I don't think brands see it like that in that, an influencer will have a small group of, let's say, true fans, super fans, whatever you want to call them. Those people will watch the ad. Those people will engage it. Those people will support that person because they'll see it's an ad and go, yes. But there are a hell of a lot of people that won't, and they will just swipe away. And that really damages the reach of the video.
It's funny that, isn't it? That thing about, I was thinking about this on the weekend for some reason. I was thinking I was in a cafe and I was thinking, God, when... So I was quite early to Twitter and I grew a big audience in the early days of Twitter and got treated like an influencer there.
Yeah.
And what was interesting about that was, you could be an influencer like you and go to a cafe and tweet, oh, I'm at this cafe and the croissants are great. And it would actually influence people. People would be like, oh, I must go there. Like, Ben thinks it's good. And he's the kind of person that goes there. Like, great. Whereas today you could have literally some of the biggest TikTokers and YouTubers in the world in your cafe, and it essentially means nothing because they're not going to do a TikTok video about your cafe because they have to stay really in their lane. Like you have to stay in your lane. You're not going to suddenly start talking about croissants and lattes.
Yeah. I'm very clear with a brand if they want me to do something and I don't feel like it's going to perform very well. I'm in a position where I can decline and say, look, But if you send me it, I might want to use it. Like, I might want to go, like you said,
Yeah.
I might want to go to that croissant shop, but I don't want to post a croissant video on my page. So I might do a story, or
Yeah.
I might actually just talk about you on my live stream. Do you know what? I went to this croissant shop yesterday, really good. So I've got mediums and places where I can push recommendations out that aren't related to my content. But
True.
the problem is that as a brand, you're not going to be able to track that. So like I've got some Polar Pro that make lens filters. Basically reached out to, these are expensive. They reached out to me the other week and they said they want a video on my page. I said, I'm going to be upfront with you. These are quite expensive. They're not the right fit for my audience. I rarely make camera content. But I do talk about my camera a lot on my live stream though. Like, and that's where it gets brought up. Like, I don't feel comfortable making a video for you and charging my rate because the video won't perform well. They just sort of said, we respect your honesty. We'd still like you to just send you stuff anyway.
Oh, that's nice.
And I was like, that's very kind. Give me a $500 voucher for just to order whatever I want. And they said, and do you know what? I'm actually going to now make a video for them because like there's no pressure for me to make a video for them.
You can do what you like.
I can do what I like. I'm going to do it on my Instagram. I'm going to do a little ASMR sort of unboxing thing because they are good products. And just like there are a few brands that operate like this. You find them, they're rare though, but it's in my opinion, it's a risky but lucrative strategy to organic distribution. Rode, the audio brand, do it as well. They send me stuff with no asks because they know their product's good. They know that I'll use it, and they know that they'll get organic mentions across places.
You got to really believe in your product, I suppose, haven't you?
You do. You can't have a crappy product. You've got to believe that the person's going to use the product, and that could be done with research. Again, not necessarily the most scalable thing, but it's like I could see. Well, I could see whatever microphone you've got there. I don't know what microphone that is. I can't see it.
Rode NT1A, actually.
Okay. Well, I could. If I'm Rode, I'd look at that and go, well, you'd already use Rode ones. We're gonna send you a better microphone. We know you'll upgrade that. You'll use it because it's better. And we know that that's going to be in your content. We know that's going to be on your TikTok. We know that over time, someone's going to go, what mic is that? And that organic recommendation will happen. The only problem is the brand, we can't track that. But it's that, or we pay your rate for a video and we've got to go a video and then the logistics, the contracting. So that you can do both. But I love this strategy of if this is how I would do it. If I was running my own brand and I believed in the product, I would go and identify large influencers, sort of 100K plus, that I know are really expensive and I haven't got the budget to afford them. But I would go, okay, I can see they use this product in the category we're in.
Nice.
We know ours is better than theirs. And so we know that if we send it to them, there's a good chance they'll use it. And if there's a good chance they'll use it, we'll get organic recommendations into their massive audience. And that's all that's cost us, is the cost of the product, rather than having to spend 5, 10, 15 grand on a video.
Just good. I like that. Yeah. And actually, in some ways, a better recommendation, a better style of recommendation anyway, that's a bit more priceless. I think that's really interesting.
I think it's a strategy to have alongside the paid stuff, but it's a strategy where you could maybe tap into larger influencers that are out of your budget, because again, they're going to have, like I've said, they're going to have things that they don't want to create videos on. There's going to be they have a certain price. It's not worth them making a video. You send me a £200, so the Rode send me some shotgun microphones, £100. That's nothing to them. And now, now anybody asks me, Ben, have you got any shop recommendations? I'll just pull them out and go, yeah, I've got a couple of these ones. I like these. These are good. I know that they'll make their money back over time. It's not trackable, and marketers don't like it when it's not trackable, right? Because digital marketing, right? Everything should be tracked when it's digital marketing, right?
It's a myth.
We've gone to this narrative now that everything's moved online, everything can be tracked, or should be tracked. But unfortunately, it's just not how it works.
Total myth, isn't it? There's still many people that believe that that everything can be tracked. And I'm always telling people that. I don't even think we're in a much different place than we were in the 1950s with TV ads and print ads. To be quite honest with you,
we just haven't got I guess there's always this battle of where does the attribution go when I make the video that makes someone aware, and then something else makes them, actually buy. If a brand spent X amount of money on my video and I actually introduced the brand to 200 people, and then 30 of them then went and buy without my code, without anything, how am I getting any of that attribution? I guess you're reliant on every brand having some sort of methodology or calculation about how they attribute, a view on TikTok, and what that usually means for conversion. But I don't think every brand is as switched on as that when it comes to figuring out how attribution gets measured across influencer stuff.
I think it's because it's the shape everything has to fit. If because spreadsheets and tables and stuff like that are sort of the basic medium of how we communicate things internally, then everything has to fit that, and you can't really turn up to the marketing meeting and say, "Look, you're just gonna have to trust me on this one. I know it's going well." And you just have to trust me. People are like, "No, I want to see the spreadsheet." And it's like, yeah, but if I put it in the spreadsheet, it will look rubbish.
Yeah.
You just have to trust me that I can't see the whole iceberg, but I can see the tip, and you only see the tip of an iceberg when there's a full iceberg. You just have to trust me on that one.
Yeah, I wonder if we will see a shift in behavior and around that thinking as traditional marketeers move out of roles, and the Gen Z audience who have been not born into, but social media influence is all a very common thing, and they understand it. I wonder if over the next 5, 10, 15 years, if attribution doesn't get better, is there actually going to be more of an understanding that we can't measure everything, and therefore lead to more lucrative tactics to, I guess.
Well, attribution is only going to get worse because of privacy, increasing privacy regulation of some sort, like has already happened, with tracking of ads through cookies and things. So
it's just very difficult to track. Yeah.
So talk me through the platforms you're on, and I'd almost love your take on where they sit in terms of value to you, because the numbers might not, 500,000 followers on TikTok is very different than 500,000 subscribers on YouTube or something like that, isn't it?
There's lots to break down here, because I think about this a lot, because obviously for me it's all about where I spend my time. Where I spend my time and how long I spend my time on that place, and I have to spend it across different platforms. I have my TikTok, which is at 460,000 followers, Instagram, which is at 280,000 followers, YouTube is around 50,000 followers, Threads 28,000, LinkedIn 6,500, and then X 1,000. For me, my growth has come initially from my short form platforms, TikTok and Instagram. They've now come to a point where I'm plateauing in opportunities, like in new opportunities. Everything, like I now get the same of the same, every week. And so YouTube for me is always the moat. YouTube is the most monetizable platform, I think, because you have really good ad revenue program that's very stable and consistent compared to other ones that start, pay lots out, and then they Snapchat, TikTok, they all do. Instagram's gone. YouTube is the only one that is just stable ad revenue platform. You have brand partnerships, sponsorships there, integrated ad, so ad in somewhere in an organic video or a whole video. You have link clicks. Biggest thing is link clicks. Links at the description, top of the description. Like, people are way more happy on you watching YouTube video, long form, to click the link if the video is related to that link. And affiliate revenue in today's age is very lucrative when it comes to subscription affiliate revenue. Lots of platforms paying 20 to 30% monthly recurring. So also less likely to be banned on YouTube, less sort of botty, scammy behavior. And so for me, it's just the place. And you just get that evergreen. You get the evergreenness of videos. I've seen people pulling up videos that have been going out for 8 years and made them $200,000, like, because it just the videos don't. You do get that on TikTok now a little bit, but it's just not the same. I think when it comes to TikTok and Instagram, which one do I think is the higher value? I say value per follower, or I think it depends what niche you're in. I think Instagram is probably higher value per follower, because you're also able to now drive people off platform through like ManyChat, which is like a DM automation app that, so you can click links in the TikTok. You still can't click links on TikTok, and that is the big thing. Is that when you think about like, you know, making money being on these platforms, you have to consider all the ways that you can make money, and that I think contributes then to evaluating value per follower. You also got to think of the nature of the audience. I think Instagram is typically a little bit of an older audience compared to TikTok, which means that generally more disposable income. Again, YouTube as well. I would say YouTube is even more of an older audience than Instagram. More disposable income. If we're then talking about disposable income in another platform, this is LinkedIn. LinkedIn with the video feed, and you maybe have seen me talk about this before, I mean, they're chopping and changing what they're doing with that video feed. Yeah. I think they still haven't figured it out, but you have to say that when they figure out how to effectively implement video onto the platform and it stabilizes in terms of they're not making any changes anymore, you have to say that LinkedIn is arguably the highest value video platform per follower because of the nature of people on there, high disposable income.
I'm sure like me, a lot of your connections, followers, people in marketing, advertising, and if you've been in the game for a few years, they've gotten a lot more senior. You're right. I find what something I think really is really interesting is I've had people contact me on LinkedIn who are very LinkedIn people. You know, they're really kind of like head of marketing or, you know, managing director types. And they'll say, oh, I saw your TikTok content. And they look like the least TikTok-y people you can imagine. But they'll say, I saw your TikTok content. I'm just dropping you a line here on LinkedIn to see if, you know, and it's an inquiry. It's a business inquiry.
I think the older generation on TikTok are more passive consumers. Like I'm a lurker. I don't engage on stuff. I just scroll. And yeah, it's interesting you say that because I've also had that, and it's kind of made me then want to still be on LinkedIn more. And also it allows me to give a different perspective and different opinion on what I do and why I do it, and breaking down things in different ways, which I think allows me to create more opinion, thought-provoking, deeper level content, which then increases the trust that like that audience, that person had in me, which I think then causes them to message me because they actually see a side to me that's not my TikTok, and then they realize, oh, actually, you know, Ben has more than a couple of brain cells. Like he actually is, you know, talking about. He takes what he does very seriously. I mean, if that wasn't obvious, like I did a YouTube video around the business I'm starting the other week, and I had a couple of people reach out to me and they said, Ben, I've been watching you on TikTok for years and I've just watched that. Like, let's have a chat. And this person has, you know, exited 2 businesses. Clearly, he sent me his profile, very successful. And it just is... Yeah, you never know who's around the corner when it comes to messaging you, and
well, I think that's the thing, isn't it? And people are multifaceted, and people spend time in different places, but they're in different modes when they're in those different places. And I think it's clearly important for us as creators and brands to do different things on the different platforms, right? And it's not a problem that you've got to be on 3, 4, 5 platforms. It's an opportunity to speak to people in different ways, to have a moment down the pub with them, but then have a moment at the office water cooler with them. And that's powerful, isn't it?
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I think, again, it just, sorry to repeat myself, but it just goes to the point of just showing different sides to you in, I guess, if you want to be super optimal, like I am, is that like I take content creation as my thing, and I talk about it in different ways, in different angles to different audiences. My TikTok is very resource focused. Here are the best AI tools, video editing tools. My YouTube is very much more inspirational, motivational, like sort of the mindset aspect. My LinkedIn is more so about, influencer marketing, thinking about how to work with creators. My Threads is more like creator brand deal focus, talking about how to make money through brands, because that the audience there they're all looking how to make money, and so I now have all of this different type of content that I wouldn't create any of that on one channel, and it allows me to now, like, I guess, just broaden the content that I create, which ultimately gets me, increases the trust that people have in me, which is always my goal. I'm a trust first creator. That is literally, I just want people to just look at me as who's striving to be an opinion leader, and just trust what I have. And I increase that by showing them that I have a really broad perspective through experience and of different angles.
I saw someone yesterday use the term, I've never heard it before, trust recession, and talked about the fact that they were sort of making the point that they think we're in a trust recession online because of AI, because of paid partnerships, just in general. And I think, well, yeah, if that's true, that's an opportunity for people like you, and I hope myself, in that, if people want to pump out AI slop, if they want to over rely on paid partnerships, be my guest, because that just opens the floor for good quality content that does build trust, right?
Yeah, I think to add to that, a lot of people are chasing views. It's easy to get views by creating not trustworthy content, because you can over exaggerate stuff. You could bend the truth. And I've always sort of said that, like, I'm not chasing views or money anymore. I'm just chasing more trust. That is because I know over the long run I'll win. Because when you damage the trust between you as a creator and an audience member, it's really hard to get that back. And you could have spent years building that, and it only takes one video or one thing to damage that.
Yeah, it's something that's bugging me at the moment is a lot of my competitors are constantly using the word insane, like this overuse of the word insane. They'll like game changing. So they'll be like, the new ChatGPT model is insane, the new image generation is insane, or they're like, Photoshop is dead, RIP Hollywood, RIP graphic design and stuff. And I'm like, there's people I really respect that I know are smart people saying this stuff. And I'm aware that when you don't, you lose out on views. But I'm glad you say that, because it gives me some faith.
No, you're the same as me. That's exactly how I see those guys on X, the people that just do sort of the 10 wild examples and stuff like that. And honestly, I like that content because it's valuable to me. But I don't like the people sharing it. I don't really know them personally, because I know X people hide behind a little bit of a profile. And even on TikTok, when I see people doing this, I like the content. I don't trust the creator, because every new week, every new tool is insane, the best, mid-journey killer, and I'm like, okay, how do you expect me to believe anything you say when everything you say is said in the same way as and it's something that I consider, and that, like, people are getting more views than me and more attention because they're willing to over exaggerate things in a way that makes them stretch the truth.
But I sort of wonder, sometimes I'm like, but is it that, in the same way you and I consume that content, and we like recalibrate it, don't we? We put a lens on to kind of, we can see the value in the content. We don't actually think it's insane, game changing or whatever. And maybe the audience is so used to like de-hyping everything on the fly as they read things.
I just think it does have an impact on trust. But if I didn't have a trust first approach and went for a exaggerated view based approach, what's my goal here? If for 100 videos I went one approach and then trust based approach, the exaggerated method would get more views, more followers, more growth. And let's say I end up on 80,000 followers. Other one ends me up on 20,000 followers. But is actually the one where I'm on 80,000, is that getting me more opportunities in the areas where I want to kind of work? Is it making me more money? But then, do I feel happy? Do I feel content? Do I feel proud of what I'm doing? And is that actually making actually all of the money and the opportunities not that worth it? Because now I feel like creating content that is not truthful, and people, it's this battle I have in my head all the time of what approach to take.
I suspect so, and I think everybody probably needs to experience straddling that line, stepping over that line,
Yes,
stepping
yes,
back
yeah.
away from it, and you sort of find your comfort level, really, don't you? And you find who you are, and you sort of become more authentically probably who you are
Mm.
as you grow,
Yeah.
I
I mean,
think.
so if a tool genuinely is, a game changer, and because there are tools that come out that are game changers,
Oh yeah, no,
that
there are.
are like, incredible. Use those words. Don't be afraid to use
Yeah.
those words if actually you genuinely believe it. But I think, and Marquez said this in an interview once with, I think it was John Uche. So Marquez Brownlee. He says, doesn't always try and focus on tech that is the biggest and the best and the most innovative. It's not a game changer. You've realized it's not a game changer, but people are happy to say that it is. But you go for an approach where you find something that's interesting about it, that's different, and you make your content around that instead, so
Yeah.
that you are being true to yourself. You're actually providing value, a different angle, arguably more valuable and more listenable, because you're not somebody that's just saying the same as everybody else.
So, just to wrap up, from a creator point of view, what are your 3 top tips for someone aspiring to grow as a creator?
Prioritize ideas over everything. The idea and the topic is the most important thing, and you just look on platforms that you're creating content to see what's performing for other people, to identify what topics and ideas resonate with the audience that you want to build, by looking at creators that have already built that audience for a similar style of content that you foresee yourself, sort of the direction that you're going in, and just start testing different ideas and figuring out what works for you and what doesn't. Second would be, don't focus too much on minute details when it comes to like hashtags, caption, SEO. All of these things have a little bit of an impact, but I've noticed that a lot of people spend too much time focusing on putting text on screen so it can be categorized properly. At the end of the day, none of these things help you make better videos, and the goal should always be to make better videos. You don't like, this is something that you optimize over time, not in the beginning, in my opinion, because there's no point of making a video that's super optimized for SEO if the video is awful.
I like that. That's good.
And then my third tip would be, you have to just keep experimenting with new ideas and new formats. Idea formats could just be different ways of presenting information, lists, stories, news, whatever like niche you're in. If it's an educational niche, then there are many different like pillars of content that you create and format the idea in, and then the video format is just experimenting with, I guess, the video and the editing, whether you sit at a desk, you film in outside, inside, different locations, you do green screen, where you sit in front, trying to figure out what your editing style is and what your video product. We've talked about it earlier, like, are you high production or are you low production? There's nothing wrong with either of those, or finding something in the middle that you feel happy with and proud of.
I like that. That's good. I feel like I saw you say on a podcast, and it's something I did, and it was good as well. You said, tell me if I'm wrong, follow people who create the kind of content around ideas that you like.
Yeah.
And also follow some people where it's maybe not in your niche, but you just like the style of their content.
Yeah,
You like
yeah.
the way that they do their content.
I said that. It's like, follow 20 creators that churn out lots of ideas when in videos, irrelevant of whether you like how they do it, because then you can use the data on their videos to understand the topics to create videos on. And then you use the other list of, find 20 creators that make videos within your niche or in different niches that you just like their style. You like their on-camera presence, you like their captions, you like their colors, you like their music, you like lots of different things about them. And then you take the ideas, and then over time you mold your own style based off of the styles that you like. So then you can then take an idea, put it in a style that feels like you, and then you then create this video that hopefully will like perform well, or the chances of it performing well will be higher because there are ideas that have performed well for everybody else, and it's in a style that resonates with you, you like it, you feel proud of it, and then you just keep moving forward.
Yeah, it's good that it's all about building on the proven
Yes.
rather than just your own
It's just
random
people don't like
thoughts.
that idea at first because they feel like they're copying. They feel like, oh,
Yeah.
but at the end of the day, like, there's very few people on social media who are coming up with ideas that are like revolutionary, like that have never been heard before.
Same in the entire creative world. I'm always telling people like the greatest artists, the greatest music artists in the world started out as a tribute act. Every
Yeah,
single one of them,
yeah.
essentially, just copying the things they love.
Mm.
Okay, great. And what are your three top tips for marketers working with creators?
Figure out where you want to actually distribute content. Is your audience on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn? And then figure out who are the right creators on those platforms to either make content that goes on their page as organic, or actually they maybe just make a UGC video for you where the video doesn't go on their page. You just pay them to make an ad for you, and then you run that as ads. It's not just about finding people with the right audience. It's content product fit as well. That's the thing that people get wrong the most is if you go and look at that creator's last 30 videos and there's not a single video of mention of a product or a service that's anything like yours, you might have the same audience, but that your video will flop.
True.
But again, that takes time, it takes work. It depends on whether people are willing to do that or not, or take shortcuts. But shortcuts usually lead to bad results. My second tip would be to make sure you've got good affiliate programs in place. I think it's a missed opportunity when a brand comes to me and they want a paid deal and I say, look, I think I'm going to be a bit out of your budget and I don't think I'm right for you. But if you've got an affiliate scheme, I'd love to join so that I can figure out where to organically promote you across my socials if I think that your product is the right fit for a very small part of my audience when, I come into contact with them. That just means that like I'm incentivized to promote that link if it's also a good sort of 20-30% off a subscription, or physical product slightly different, a bit more nuanced. But I love it when brands have good affiliate schemes because then I want to make it work. Honestly, I want people to sign up to that link because I make good money from affiliate links when I find people in my audience where that product solves a problem for them, and everybody's happy. My audience member wins because they found something that solves a problem. Brand wins because they got a new customer, make money. I win because I make also money. And it's one thing I think brands miss out on a little bit because affiliate marketing sort of, in my opinion, has this not a great reputation, but like very low percentages.
True.
You've got to make it attractive for influencers and creators to want to promote that affiliate link by giving good percentages. Lastly, don't be afraid to leverage brand advocates to consult, to help with influencer marketing. And what do I mean by that? I mean, going out and finding people in your community that create content, people that are your brand advocates, that make content without you asking, that just do it because they love the product or service, and use them to help figure out how to also do influencer marketing if you want to start putting money behind influencers, because these people will be able to tell you and help find the right people. So it goes with my first point, and they'll just be able to overall advise on and help with strategy. I don't think enough brands do this. They use agencies or they do in-house, and I think creators are the ones that sit in the ecosystem every single day. I'm in the mud of everything that is happening. I have got very good understanding of products, services, pricing, influencers, lots of things. And creators across every single niche do that. And I think brands are not utilizing them to tap into their knowledge and insights to better shape their own influencer strategy. And actually, the last thing that I would add on to that is also using creators and influencers for data insights. It pains me that more brands don't do this because I know brands love data. I say, instead of paying me to just make a video and push it on my TikTok, why don't you ask me to do a market research study with my audience? Why don't you ask me to actually do a live stream and give me 10 questions around the product or the audience, so I'm doing one for SanDisk, and I'm going to say to them, look, give me 10 questions and I'll discuss these questions with my audience and get you some feedback and get some real feedback and answers. Like, do they think it's too expensive? Do they like the color? what's the first thing they think of when I say SanDisk? Like, and getting an understanding of what my audience thinks about the product, I think is rich data. Like, and I don't think brands are doing this enough when it comes to influence, because I can gather you insights that are really insightful to what my audience thinks about your product. And if the video doesn't do well, I can ask my audience, why did you guys watch this video? Why did it not do well? Oh, the product's just not that interesting for us. It's too expensive, you know? I think it's a very, I know market research is not cheap. And I think, you know, again, it ties in with finding brand advocates, finding people that are happy to do this sort of stuff. And yeah, building relationships with creators and influencers that can really provide value back, rather than it just be based off of like a very transactional video for some cash and just views and then done deal, goodbye.
It is very transactional, isn't it? It's odd that I can see the reasons for that because I've worked on both sides of it, but it is a shame there's a lot missed out on. And that's such a great idea, that idea of, you know, data and insights, doing informal market research, albeit, you know, admittedly, but really rich, interesting information. Absolutely. Yeah, that's brilliant. That's great advice. Look, thanks so much. I feel like I've learned loads, and it's been a pleasure and an honor to spend time with you, Ben. I appreciate that. I mean, you are one of a handful of creators that inspired me to pull my finger out late last year and
that's what I'm there to do.
Yeah, taking it more seriously. So appreciate that. And the audience has learned a lot about creators from both sides. Just one last thing, just remind people where they can find you and connect with you online.
Just Ben Kaluza, just my name, just all in one.
Good stuff.
Just I secured my social handles many years ago before I actually wanted to start putting content everywhere, and yeah, I'm very happy about that because I'm very fussy with handles.
Good on you. Right, thanks very much. Hope to speak to you again soon.
And you, man.